Hi everyone, welcome to my quick teaser video that I promised about BIGBench. BIGBench is a benchmark for evaluating and testing large language models. It's thought as a collaborative benchmarks, which means that you can all contribute to it, and if your contribution meets certain quality criteria, then you can actually be included with your task into the benchmark. It was started by Google originally, and many participants or contributors helped build a quite impressive benchmark. The idea why this also is called Big Beyond Imitation Game benchmark has to do with Alan Turing. You can see him sitting here. The idea is a bit inspired by the Turing test, where a machine, artificial intelligence, would communicate with a human, and the human would try to identify whether it's actually communicating with a machine or another human. So the machine would have to behave in a kind of way that a human would as well. That's the inspiration here. So some kind of imitation game going on, but we want to go beyond that here. The idea is that because language models, especially large language models, claim to be so general, so generalizing, and also so universal in the task that they could be applied on, that it would make sense to also evaluate the large language models on very diverse and very many tasks from very different backgrounds. And those tasks could also probably then be executed by humans, which could serve as a reference performance. So people already did that. The first evaluation run is through, and they also did some human evaluations there. And if you want, you can have a look at the results. You can find them here in a preliminary paper. But this is not supposed to be the focus of this introduction here. I quickly want to talk you through the main aspects to enable you to maybe check out the tasks that there are already, maybe think about new tasks that you could propose or implement yourselves, and see a bit what the motivation is here. So let's start with the tasks that we have already, quite many actually. If you visit this page, you can find them all, and they are all also sorted into categories where you could check out what's going on there. They also have descriptions that you can access and read and see a bit why people designed this task that way that it is designed. Also, there are some fun tasks, as you could say. For example, this codenames task, I think, is inspired by the word puzzle game Codenames. So if you have fun with these kind of things, they certainly fit in with BIGBench. Let's have a look at the second component. So we, on one side, have the tasks that you just saw. On the other side, we have the models that will be evaluated. And they actually created a wide range of models that could be used for evaluation, and they also run the evaluations, and also for models like GPT-3, which are not open or openly available. They have people running the evaluations on the corresponding servers. So people are quite open to contributions there, and also allow for wide range testing, and you don't have to do that yourself. On the other hand, it would be good if you already did some prompt engineering, for example, if you want to use that in before, and don't just rely on performance on a generic prompt that is not engineered yet. that would, I mean, it should be okay, because if a human could solve the task based on your prompt, then the machine should also be able to do it without prompt engineering. But this is something that could be considered when designing the task, so keep that in mind. By the way, the instructions how to create a new task can in short be found here, but I also go over some details. What you can also do is you can test this all in a Colab environment. So there you can run a GPT-2 model and test out your tasks or any other tasks that you could see. It might take a while to execute, but I mean, yeah, for testing, it's really nice and to see what's going on there and to understand. But also just having a look at the tasks in general is quite interesting. So I'd like to talk about how to create such tasks. And it's actually quite easy. There are instructions here, but there are basically two types of tasks that you could create. A JSON task, which is quite a static way of defining a task, where you would create such a JSON file here. So this is a simple arithmetic task. What is the result of 4 plus 9? It should be 13. And in such a JSON task format, you just note down the inputs, the model inputs and the model targets in a pre-specified format. You can see all the details here and also check out the examples and the existing tasks. And then the results would be extracted and compared with the expected result, the expected target, and then a score will be calculated. Something that you can see here is the so-called canary string, like the canary bird, which repeats everything that you whistle to it. So the idea, I also briefly discussed it in the lab, is that you don't want this all to leak into the training data for the language models, because this would be a severe case of train test leakage, and it would basically destroy what you're trying to do here. So this is why people have to contribute to BIGBench, have to include this canary string everywhere, even in code that they could submit. It has to be included everywhere. And if this string ever leaks into a language model when it's trained on internet data, for example, then we know that this is train test leakage and that this task or any task in general had been leaked into the training set. And by the way, this string is identical for each and every task that you submit. Basically, I think there are measures built into modern LLM training / crawling algorithms that detect this very string and exclude it from training. Let's have a look at this. This is the other way of defining a task. It's called a programmatic task. Should be somewhere here. Probably way below. Yes, a programmatic task. This is a bit more interesting because it's more flexible. It allows for more options to define a task and also to do things like dynamic reaction on the model's input or output, to do some sort of dialogue and to control the flow of information more than in this static format. You can see it here also for this very same example of arithmetics. And this is just metadata information that's not really interesting. What's interesting here is this evaluate model function. What happens here is we randomly generate such samples. We take some digits and randomly, or the number of digits, and randomly generate numbers, construct a problem string, just append this and put a plus and equals sign. And then we put this into the model over here, generate the output, pass the output and check whether it's correct. And if yes, we increase the score And in the end, we provide a score data object, which indicates how well the model has been performing and can also be used for further evaluations. Something I also want to mention here, which is very important, are the metrics that you could use. So I already briefly mentioned that you could define multiple choice tasks / classification tasks, basically. There are also examples available for that. Check them out. But you could also do more flexible kinds of evaluation, text generation, for example, and then other metrics are interesting. So see those text-to-text metrics. You have this blue evaluation, for example, or metrics, which checks on text similarity, but also a more sophisticated one, as one could say, this blurred, which uses bird, X like blue. But you could also check for exact string matching. So this is especially interesting when you define a JSON task and don't want to define an extensive evaluation method yourself. Just use these metrics and you're pretty good to go. But also for those classification tasks or multiple choice tasks, you can use several metrics. Probably this one is the one that's the most easy to understand, at least, but you could also include some model calibration there. For example, if you provide many multiple choice options, then randomly guessing would yield a quite low expected accuracy, and this score tries to compensate that. But I mean, they are still pretty open to defining new metrics that you could include there. Something that's also interesting probably is the query composition. So how will the query actually be built to be put into the model? So not much prompt engineering happening here. Yeah, just the input is combined with input prefix and output prefix. So this is what we already did when we did our very first prompt engineering examples, and then the output is expected. For the multiple choice task, this works a bit differently. You provide those choices and then expect an answer, and the answer is then supposed to be generated, but I mean, you can check for the probability of generation here. So this is how they realized this. And you can also do multi-shot queries where you would include multiple instances of the same question type into a single evaluation where you expect the output to this last input. The last thing that's left here is the contribution. So feel free to contribute there. We as a research group already did this and did a nice authorship verification task. So maybe, this is also interesting to you and open, of course. And papers are planned to be written in the future if you include your contribution into this benchmark. So I hope this quick introduction / teaser was interesting and helpful for you. Feel free to check it out yourself and check the examples, run the collabs, and if you have any questions, please ask.